I want to debunk 3 mask studies that the CDC is holding up as proof that masks work. All right, I got 3 studies, technically 4, that we're going to debunk right here. All right, very first one, here we go. This is the most recent study that the CDC is holding up. This is an elementary school right outside San Francisco. This is the image that the CDC is, the cartoon image with the weird aesthetics that the CDC has of people with no faces. They always do people with no faces. Anyway, so it's an elementary school outside San Francisco. 24 kids. You can see the layout of the classroom. Those squares in the middle is the layout of the classroom. 12 of the 24 kids got COVID from the teacher. Now, the claim is, you guys keep that image up. The red, you can see the pinkish hued is people who got infected. The claim is that based on the seating arrangement, the kids in the front row all got it, and then it made like a pyramid going back through the middle, but it doesn't really because the kids in the back corner and the back, so I don't even know what that point is. Anyway, point is she wore a mask. She wore a mask, but she was unmasked when she was reading a story to the children. The parents say that their kids were masked as well, which is my first point on this study, and to show you how unscientific this entire analysis is. How did the parents know if their kids were masked? This is from the study. So no one ever reads the study. I read the study. Here's the study. Interviews with parents of infected students suggested that students' adherence to masking and distancing guidelines in line with CDC recommendations were high in the class. You asked the parents if kids in class were, how would they know? How would the parents who are not in the classroom know if their kids were compliant with mask wearing and distancing? That's absurd. So that's how unscientific this entire thing is. But either way, the suggestion is that because the teacher took her mask off, the kids then got COVID. But by the CDC's own estimation, the kids were wearing masks. And the desks were 6 feet apart and compliance was high. So why is wearing masks the takeaway from this example? Why is the CDC holding this up as, oh, well, proof you got to wear your masks? The kids are wearing the masks. To me, it seems like the masks didn't work. So what's the real issue here? What caused the spread, Slater? Well, the teacher was symptomatic. She was sick. She was hacking up all over the place. Don't go to work. Don't go anywhere if you're sick. That's the lesson here. She worked for 2 days while she was symptomatic. Don't do that. That's the takeaway, not the masks. Also worth noting, and they don't include this in the headlines, 5 of those kids who got sick, 5 of the 12, were asymptomatic. They didn't even know they were sick. Study number 2. Studies have shown that masks are highly effective at preventing the spread of COVID-19, except for the last study we just talked about, which does not show that at all. A study released in June of more than 800,000 students attending in-person school last spring in North Carolina, where masks were mandatory, found that there were only 308 student cases where COVID was spread at school. Okay, let's debunk that one first. There was no control group. Because all the kids in North Carolina wore masks, there were no schools that didn't wear masks. So you couldn't compare. You couldn't compare this school over here and this school over here. This school mask, this school no mask. Couldn't do that because they all wore masks. That's science 101. It's experiment 101. You need a control group. There was no control group. The reason COVID didn't spread in the schools wasn't because of the masks. It was because of widespread testing, quarantining every kid who got positive, and the whole thing. And distancing and more than distancing was ventilation, like keeping the windows and the doors open all the time. Masks had nothing to do with it. How can you possibly conclude with all the different variables that go on in a school with no control group, how can you conclude that masks were the thing that did it? You can't. They held up another study, 17 schools in Wisconsin, and they concluded that the schools had a lower amount of spread than in the community. But same thing, at that school they did the pods, so the kids stayed in the assigned groups, they didn't mingle, they quarantined all the kids with constant testing and the whole thing. And here's what the study itself says about masks. You don't have to take my analysis of it. This is the study itself. Mask use was assessed using a survey that was not validated, dependent on voluntary teams. The two hair dryers are the 2 salon people, and those are all the clients that they had. None of them got COVID. Everyone wore face coverings. No one got COVID. All right, so here's you got 2 women working at the salon. They worked for 8 days with symptoms for COVID until they finally got tested. They they worked with 139 clients. These two women did, right? And of the 139 clients, none of them got COVID. That's the claim, right? And the CDC concludes, well, obviously, it was because the women working there and the clients were wearing masks. So masks work, there you go, end of story. Now everyone over the age of 2 has to wear a mask wherever you go, inside, outside, everywhere, no matter what. That's what the CDC said. I'm going to quote an actual line from the study. Only a subset was tested. Excuse me? They didn't even test all 139 of the clients. They only tested some of them. They only tested 67. They only tested 67 of the clients. So how do they conclude that all 139 didn't have COVID? They only tested 67 of them. Why didn't you test the rest of them? That's in the study. It says it. They said only a subset was tested. The rest of them, they just asked. Said, hey, do you have COVID? They said, no, I don't have it. And that was it. That was the study. Great job, scientists. So maybe the people at the salon wearing masks, the workers and the people who went there, maybe they were wearing masks and maybe they did spread COVID. We don't know. Why do we not know? They only tested half of them. What crap is that? What kind of crap scientist is that? Why would you only test half of them? All right. So these people worked, 8 days? 8 days with symptoms. But the CDC says that viral shedding is at its highest 2 to 3 days before. And check this out. Any clients who interacted with the stylists before they became symptomatic were not recruited for contact tracing. What? So you didn't even follow the people who went to the salon while the 2 people who worked there were spreading the disease the most? Why not? It is entirely possible, probably probable, that let's say 10 people went to the salon when they were actually spreading the disease the most, the 2 days before they showed symptoms, right? Let's say 10 people went to the salon that day, those 2 days. Maybe all 10 of them got sick. And they were wearing masks. Everyone was wearing masks. And maybe all of them got sick. We don't know. They didn't check them. They didn't check them. They weren't recruited. I don't know. Why even check, right? What kind of study is that? So let's say they did. Let's say, okay, same scenario, two salon workers, 139 clients. Let's say they tested all of them. And of the 67 they didn't test the first time, they tested them, and 10 of them did have, or 40 of them actually had COVID and showed symptoms. Some were asymptomatic, didn't even know it, right? Let's say they got sick. And then let's say 10 people went in before and they all got sick too. Would you still conclude masks worked? You certainly can't with whatever garbage they just did there, whatever incomplete study they did here. This is the proof that they hold up. I'm not cherry picking these. I didn't pick the 4 weakest studies. These are CDC studies that they're using to justify masking every kid in American schools. And it's going to continue depending on how blue of a state is and how much of a psychopath your governor or mayor is. I went to go drop my 4-year-old off at pre-K the other day. We drove by a high school, and all the kids were wearing masks outside on the sidewalk, walking to school. They weren't even on school property. There was like an apartment complex and houses down the street, and they were walking from their houses to the school, and they were wearing, so that means they left their house, put on a mask to walk outside on the sidewalk. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are we doing? Why are we inflicting this on our children for no reason? And why do so many people blindly go along with it? And for the love of Pete, how long do we have to do this where you keep trusting the experts? They're not trustworthy. Wow, that was deep and insightful. I want more of that. Like, subscribe, get more.